Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast. We look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. We are coming to you from SoFi Stadium, a special State of the Union, immediately following the United States' loss to Panama in the semifinal of the Nations League. My friend Stu Holden is here to join me with some instant reaction. Our friend David Mosse will be with us later in the show. All right, Stu. Not good. Not good, my friend.
No bueno. No bueno. Panama, again, getting the better of the United States. Look, it's the same old story. There was no red card tonight for the United States, and yet the same result. They end up losing against the Panamanian team. I thought the U.S. had, for the large part of the game, control of the game and the possession, but not really dangerous. And that's the biggest frustration when it comes to this team. It's the chance creation. The game was slow. The game was flat. But you knew what you were going to get against Panama. You knew they were going to set up in a 5-4-1. They were going to lock down space. They played very narrow in the middle. And yet, we're trying to jam the ball through the middle of the field to find Pulisic, who, by the way, I thought had a very poor game today for the United States. Came in great form from his club form with AC Milan. Josh Sargent ultimately had no real chances in front of goal. Tim Weah, one of the few bright spots. But outside of that, I'm struggling to find anything that gives me real confidence and hope off the back of this team. Now, it's not everything is falling from the sky, but yet we were saying for Mauricio Pochettino, Lex, there's very few opportunities between now and the World Cup next summer where you're going to have real competitive, meaningful games. And once again, in a big moment, not in the qualifying for this, in a semifinal, the U.S. fell flat in a tournament, by the way, which Greg Berhalter absolutely dominated.
All right, we're going to get into all the details when it comes to the State of the Union, but I will just say this. Coming off of this loss, again, 1-0 loss to our friends Panama in the semifinal of the Nations League. For the first time, the U.S. will not only not play in it, but obviously not win the Nations League. There are two ways that you can look at this, Stu. One, you can take the long approach and you can say, obviously, nothing really matters until the summer of 2026, and yes, the sky is not falling. Or you can look at it and say, this is unacceptable. This was a lackluster performance. This was a performance that was devoid of any emotion, any passion, any determination, and any direction. It was rudderless from top to bottom, and not just the score, the individual performances. This is on the players, and this is on Pochettino. Is the sky falling? No. There is a third-place game to be played, either against Mexico and Canada, two quality opponents, and obviously we're 400 and something days until the World Cup next summer. But this is not good enough. And Mauricio Pochettino's job is to make us believe that something different is there, that something new is there, that we are going to see something that we haven't seen before. And guess what, my friends? We've seen that before. We do not want to see it again. And yet tonight, again, this U.S. team came out against Panama and fell flat on their face. Yes, so it hurts. Yes, it is disgraceful. Again, not the end of the world, but things have got to get better, and they have to get better faster.
But let me ask you this. Let's have a real conversation here, because I think when Pochettino was hired, it was all about, look, we've got this world-class coach now, and it's instantly going to make us better. But we were asking, after the Copa America, and I felt justifiably so, are these players good enough? And Pochettino can't create new players out of nothing. Now, I'm not passing any blame off of him. He's obviously culpable and needs to take responsibility for A, the lineup he chose, B, the tactics, everything else. But at the end of the day, when we're out there, did we have the players that are good enough? I think we're a better team than Panama, but we didn't have the guys tonight that could execute on the plays, that could finish chances, that could create a moment of brilliance in the final third. And are we so reliant on our star player? And I think we are. On Christian Pulisic to be the guy every single time that we're like, you know what, wait, Pulisic's going to produce a goal. He's going to produce an assist. But on a night like tonight, when he didn't play well, he's double-teamed. Who's going to step up? There was nobody there, and I didn't feel outside of Tim Weah. Nothing from McKennie. Josh Sargent was quiet. I thought the midfield between Tessman and Tyler Adams, those are guys that are going to win you a game and create that moment. So when our main guy, and this is going to be an issue in the World Cup, in the Gold Cup, when he's marked out of the game, do we have a guy that can step up? I don't think we do. And to me, that's beyond the coaching element. It was always going to be about, now can this group of players take themselves to another level, or do they have another gear? And to me, I mean, this is the same team we lost to in the Copa America, but except now in the Nations League semifinal. It's beyond disappointing. I'm furious, and as you should be if you're a fan watching right now, but now I'm almost at a point of apathy and sadness and almost maybe a sad realization that maybe this team's not as good as we thought they were going to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, we are going to get into all of this and get into some of the minutia and some of the details here. So hang with us when it comes to the State of the Union. We give you the good, bad, and unfortunately, we got to give you the ugly too. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the State of the Union. As promised, we bring our good friend David Mosse on the show and our good friend and colleague over here, John Strong, the voice of American soccer. We are a couple hours after that debacle of a loss. The United States 0, Panama 1 in the semifinal of the Nations League. And we come to you a couple minutes after the final whistle here. Mexico over Canada, 2-0. Is that what it ultimately ended up, right? So the United States will face Panama in the third place game, and the United States will face Canada in the third place game, and Mexico will face Panama in the final. Not necessarily the way we drew it up, except we get an opportunity to play against Canada. Mosse, I'm going to go to you. You had an opportunity to watch a bunch of different things today, whether it was soccer or basketball. You were sweating it out there with your Wolverines, right? Don't worry. If they were able to pull it out, unlike the U.S. team. Thoughts on the U.S. game?
Well, Lex, we did get your U.S.-Canada matchup you were pining for,
yes,
but not in the way you wanted. And a big picture, I think the honeymoon is over for Pochettino. There's been this vibe as if he's doing us all a favor by taking this job, as if we're so lucky to have him, but he's not above criticism. And I found some of his decisions today a bit head-scratching. Now, the U.S. still should have won the game. They had better players on the field than Panama. But you think about the chain reaction to Jedi Robinson being out. He starts Scally at left back, Moose at right back, Tessman in the midfield, Weston further up the field. And that last one, did you need Adams and Tessman against a Panama team bunkered down in a 5-4-1? I feel like you could have played McKinney alongside Adams and gotten an attacking midfielder in there, a Reyna or a Luna. And then as the game is going on and you're struggling to break down Panama, the move he makes is McGlynn for Tessman. And I like Jack McGlynn, but I think he should have brought on Reyna or Luna at that point. And the fact that neither of those players saw the field was a head-scratcher for me.
John Strong, I think we were talking earlier that this is the first time you've actually been to a U.S. national team game in person, and you're not actually working
in 20 years.
In
yes.
20 years.
Yes.
All right. We're never bringing you back again after what
It was
happened.
my fault. I'm sorry.
After what happened
I'm sorry.
tonight. Thoughts on this failure?
I think it's a couple things. There's the result and there's the performance, because the result of this game, not dissimilar, honestly, from when they played Panama at Copa America. If Tim Weah doesn't get himself sent off, they probably win that game. They advance out of the group, and things are a bit different. In this game, Sargent's goal, it's a narrow offside in the buildup. There's one off the post. It's a very winnable game. And honestly, I think Matt Turner just gets caught too far to one side, leaves the other side of the goal open. The U.S. could have won it at extra time. The larger issue is the performance. The larger issue is, and I think Mauricio Pochettino talked about it post-game, the attitude, the intensity, the combativeness, the aggressiveness with which this team did not play. That's an issue. That's an issue that predates Pochettino. The issues of when you don't have your best players available. And to your point, Mosse, about Anthony Robinson and all, that's an issue that predates Pochettino. So he inherits these challenges. He's got to find solutions for them. But it's disappointing that we're 15 months from a World Cup and we're still seeing some of the same things we saw at Copa America, where there's just a flatness and a lifelessness to the performances of this team.
Look, we've all talked about the sky is not falling, and this is certainly one game. But it is a game in which there continue to be emergencies in terms of up top, Josh Sargent. Now, to be fair to Josh Sargent, didn't have a lot of service, but still nobody has stepped up and grabbed hold of it. He had an opportunity, had a goal called back, but wasn't creating anything for himself, and others weren't creating for him. I'm sorry, I think Christian Pulisic is world class when he plays out there on the left. I think he loses the game, and I think you lose something when you try to put him in the middle. I understand why Pochettino or others will try at times to put him in the middle. I just think you put him out wide on that left-hand side and have him be world class. We saw Alphonso Davies for Canada play at left back. He can play other positions, but he is world class at left back. I think that's what you do with Christian Pulisic. Mosse, I don't think is a wide player. Weah, on the left-hand side today, I think is better on the right-hand side, and he's shown that over the last cycle here. But when it comes to this team, here's the deal. Let me read Pochettino's quote, by the way. You were referencing there. We are the USA, but you cannot win with your shirt. You need to come here and be better and suffer and win the duels and work hard. If not, it's not going to be enough. All right, I get that. Here's the deal. This, again, I go back to this generation and this team that has been given everything, and I love it. I'm so happy that they have had all of these opportunities and resources. I will take, at this moment, less talent and more assholes is what I'm talking about, all right? This team needs a little bit, not a little bit, a lot of bit of fire, and we're not seeing that. This was a humdrum type of performance that wasn't necessary. This should have been put to bed early against this type of competition when it comes to Panama.
Look, okay, we've had, how many hours since we had that initial reaction? We're very hot. I've had a lot of time to think, sitting here processing, and it is difficult in these moments to try to have the bigger picture view and think about, okay, where is this team at bigger picture? And ultimately, when I come back to it, right, John, you and I called Netherlands, Spain earlier today. There was always a feeling, no matter how bad Spain were playing in that game, they were going to find a way to win. A good U.S. team tonight would have found a way to win against that Panamanian team. Even if it's an ugly game, even if you know they're going to sit 10 guys behind the ball, you find a way to win. Now, that you could have 10 assholes out there, Lex, if that's what you want, but ultimately it comes down to a bit of quality. And I think outside of Pulisic, whether you play him on the left, you play him through the middle, I just don't think we have enough guys that can win games for you in games like that are ugly, that are tough, that need a moment of quality outside of Pulisic. And look, I think he's best in the middle. But if he's playing out on the left on a day like today, I think it's team dependent, it's game dependent, it's case dependent. It's not a carte blanche. And that's where I come back a little bit, Mosse, on Pochettino, where I felt like he didn't have the right decisions and didn't get the feel that today the space was out wide. Get Pulisic out wide. Let him run at defenders. Why is Yunus Musa facing up against a left back from Panama trying to take him on, dumping across in the box? There's nobody. And that's where I felt like maybe for the first time so far, it's still early in Pochettino's tenure, that we didn't see him have the feel for the game in this team. And that's going to come. He's going to say, oh, I need time.
Well, no, is it going to come, Stu? Because what I hear you saying,
so.
And I'm translating this in my head right now, is that this team is not good enough.
I think he's going to have a better feel, but relative to what?
Is this team
good enough to what?
To do things we haven't seen before.
No, I don't think so.
All right.
I don't think this team is any better than anything we've seen in the past.
So we should set those expectations much lower when it comes to 2026 and what can be done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how is it possible that in 2025, 440, however many days before the World Cup, that this is where we are?
Okay, so what have you seen that makes you think that this team can be better than anything we've seen before?
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I just want you to I want you to be clear in what you are saying right now, because there are those that believe that this generation is the most talented generation and therefore should do things that haven't been done in the past.
Just to put a button on the Pulisic point, I do think Pochettino got a little cute with those three players playing behind the striker, Weah, McKennie, and Pulisic. They were alternating throughout the game, their positions, and Pulisic never really got settled. He never felt comfortable to me, and that can't happen with your best player. He needs to find a place on the field where he's comfortable and he can really get into the game. But at the risk of incurring your wrath, when we think about...
never stopped you before, buddy.
When we think about reasons for the flat performance, the atmosphere didn't help. Now, I know you two have dealt with this as players, so you're probably tired of talking about it is what it is.
There was a bunch of Mexican fans that were screaming and yelling.
I have to say, Lex...
Stop. Come on, man.
I have to say, having been in the stadium for the last several hours, it was surreal to me to have the U.S. be the undercard, Mexico be the headliner, the stadium be empty for the U.S. game, at least until the Mexico fans started showing up, who were all rooting for Panama. The stadium erupted when Waterman scored, and then for the Mexico game, it was electric. And when we talk about the growth of the sport in this country, I'm sorry, that has to be a part of the conversation. That this was a kind of a...
It's not an
But hold on, but that's
excuse,
no different than the prior Nations League finals.
Yeah.
That has been the case for every prior Nations League final going back to Denver in 2021. That part of it is not
Is that
new.
demoralizing for the players that it never changes, though?
Yeah, absolutely. I said it when we walked in this building. It's depressing for me as a former U.S. men's national team player, now as a broadcaster and a fan of the team, that we're walking in and we're the setup act for Mexico. But going back to something you said after the Copa America when we got knocked out by Panama, you want to be excited about this team. So Pochettino gives you some excitement, right? A little bit, but the players ultimately have to do stuff on the field that makes us believe again that they can do something that we haven't seen before. We haven't seen that. So why should fans turn up here at 4 o'clock on a Thursday? The casual fan. Of course you have the hardcore fans here, but it is depressing to me. But Mexico's the main event. I mean, that showed in the ticket sales.
Well, change, I think, gets people excited. All right, just change in general gets people excited. So I think that was part of it. That Pochettino comes with cachet and a name. I think that gets people excited, and the fact that the team bombed out of Copa America and people wanted that change to come. But I don't buy the excuse, and I think you're letting these players and this team off the hook.
We're not giving that as an excuse, though. You're not giving that as the excuse for why they lost. He's just saying it's a part of the equation.
No, it's not a part of the equation. That equation
Alex,
has been in front of every American player that has ever played for the national team, all right? Especially here in Los Angeles.
But Lex, tell me with a straight face, if you're playing in front of 14,000 versus 70,000, you don't feel a difference as a player when you're on the field in terms of
course,
the intensity and the excitement and the energy that you feed off? Come on.
I'm not saying that this was a great environment. It absolutely wasn't for that first game.
And I'm not saying that's not the reason we didn't beat Panama. I'm just saying that, like, I'm with Mosse and that maybe it is a part of the whole experience.
Maybe they're spoiled because, and again, maybe I'm grumpy old manning this thing, but there was a time when generations of soccer players that were American, even when they were playing games at home in the United States, you had to generate your own energy, all right? And if I would like to think that we have moved past that, but evidently we haven't. But I hope that players haven't lost that ability to do so.
I want to make it absolutely clear. I'm not saying that the U.S. players get a pass because they played in front of 20 instead of 60,000 tonight. And I think it goes back to something that you guys both talked about in terms of Pochettino and the way he criticized the players post game, is that look, you need to use this loss as an opportunity to try to create a bit of pressure and to try to let these guys understand nothing is given, okay? You know Pulisic's going to be there no matter what in 26, but the rest of it, what happened in the past, nothing matters. That loss, I'm only saying, you know what, guys? Maybe these aren't the guys. Maybe I'm going to go and find some other players out there that are American and give them the opportunity. They are going to fight. They are going to do the things. You're going to find some assholes that might give you a little bit more than what you saw tonight.
John, you mentioned Matt Turner. Two players I want to highlight. Tim Ream didn't cover himself in glory on that Panama goal either. And then, Turner, it's getting a lot of attention. It's not a howler, but it's one of those should-have-done-better goals.
His positioning is off, and this is a guy that's not playing.
How concerned are you?
And the point was made to be by someone, I think it was a fair point. If Matt Turner's starting week in, week out, he probably is in a better position. He probably makes that save. So that is, again, no different. You need to have your starting goalkeeper playing week in, week out. I think that was honestly the single biggest reason why the U.S. had what happened to them at Copa America beyond the red card against Panama. Half of the starting lineup was not playing regularly in the 6 months leading, either because of injury or because they weren't being picked by their manager. That can't happen. This team's not good enough to have a bunch of guys showing up at 50%. And this squad does not have the depth to be able to, okay, fine, we're not going to worry about that, we'll get someone else. So as it pertains to the third place match, I think it's totally fair for a Zach Steffen or a Patrick Schulte to get their opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I think Matt Turner is the first person who understands he needs to be in a position this summer. He's got to figure something out where he's playing week in, week out. And one of a couple of guys that has to do that. The U.S. cannot go into next World Cup and not be having every single player playing at a high level, not say a high level, but for themselves, have a sharpness come into that tournament.
But gentlemen, can this change in the limited amount of time that we have between now and the World Cup? By the way, I do think that this kind of raises the stakes when it comes to this summer's Gold Cup, which, by the way, you can see on Fox.
Oh, yeah. It's a redemption tour now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, but it's another tournament situation. It's the last tournament situation before the World Cup. It's a tournament that this team has won, and I do think
it's a tournament not many of these players have won, incidentally, because the core of this team right now, they only actually played in the 2019 Gold Cup when they were not ready for prime time. They narrowly lost to Mexico, and they've actually not been a part of the last two Gold Cups. That's something I do think is interesting.
But can it change? And look, I don't want to be Pollyanna. Obviously, we are in television. We want people to watch, and at times we talk about things and we talk up things. But when it comes to this team, Stu, with like I said, 400 and whatever days before the World Cup, can they become a team where you say, this is a team that's worth my time. This is a team that can do things. Or are we just left to say, well, whatever happens in 2026 happens in 2026. The circus will come to town. Maybe we'll do okay. Maybe we won't. But nobody's excited about it. And then if it's great, if not, the circus will leave town and we'll move on.
I'm going to use this to transition to Mosse in a way that I'm starting to wonder, like, we have good individual talent, but we haven't been able to find the best team. And ultimately, the best team is what wins on the field. And I would go back, if we look at all of our different U.S. teams over the course of different generations, you could argue skill level and clubs and, where these guys played and what they've done in their careers. But ultimately, it was about finding the best 11 guys on the field. You go back to the U.S. team that beat Spain in 2009 Confederations Cup. Is that our best U.S. team we've ever had? No, but they knocked off the number one
one of the great
team.
results in the history of the
one of the
U.S.
great
men's
results
team.
in history, because that was a great team. And I'm parlaying that over to you in the Brazilian sense. Of course, your dour nature. Congratulations on your win against Colombia, Mosse. But Brazil constantly has wonderful individual, skillful players, but yet in many years have not produced a team. And I just wonder how you kind of find that right balance, and you're constantly searching. That's kind of where I'm at with the U.S. team, is how does Pochettino now create the best team from these individuals and not necessarily the best 11 players on the field?
It's a challenge. No, I've been saying this even going back to the Berhalter days. In this effort to be more progressive, the U.S. is in a little bit of this no man's land where they're not good enough to out-talent the best teams. But in this effort to be progressive, they've lost some of that blue-collar mentality from your guys' era, so they're not good enough to out-tough these top teams and win that way. So, yeah, the U.S. right now does find itself in a little bit of a no man's land.
Here's the interesting thing, and I think about relation to the Nations League. 4 years ago, 2021 Nations team, most of these same players, remember that game in Denver against Mexico? That team had a scrappiness and a fight to it. So we've seen these guys do it. The issue isn't that these guys aren't capable of it. The issue is that these guys have lost something. It's a matter of them getting it back. This particular group has shown that type of edge, that type of scrappiness, that type of fight. We think about your 94 group that overachieved at that World Cup relative to expectations, the groups you were a part of that honestly you could make an argument the 2010 team might have been the best in the sense that was a winnable game against Ghana, and then you're in Uruguay in a quarterfinal. We've seen all those sorts of things before. I think this team has it. I think something has happened in the last 2 years since the World Cup that they've lost an edge, and I don't know quite why. And I can't sit here and say how they get it back. But we've seen these players get into a fist fight with Mexico and have stuff hurled at them. We've seen these players in half-empty stadiums put out good performances. That's not the issue, is whether they can. The issue is how do they get back to doing it. And some of that's Pochettino, but some of that's also the leadership internally at this team kind of getting up these guys' backsides a bit right now.
Before we move on, I do want to give Panama some love because I think Thomas Christensen has done an incredible job.
Huge game for them in this final.
They are clearly now the fourth best team in CONCACAF. This is the third straight calendar year that they've contributed to a U.S. elimination in a tournament. Remember the Gold Cup in 23 eliminated the U.S. on penalties.
We were there.
And then 24 Copa America beat them in the group stage, and now this.
And they were unlucky to lose to Mexico in that Gold Cup final here in this building.
Absolutely. Santi Jimenez with a great goal.
Overachieving, I would say, relative to the talent and that we would say. And I guess you and I were talking about this on the way in the back of the tunnel, and I'm curious if you still feel the same way, is that I think relative to the way we feel about the U.S. having played and also how I still feel about the talent gap. The U.S. dominated that game for large stretches, but still found a way to lose. Do we underestimate the likes of Panama? Because still, to me,
but what you're saying is
like
Aníbal Godoy, is he better than Tyler Adams? Is Carrasquilla better than Weston McKennie?
I don't want to settle to say, wow, that was a great Panamanian team we played today, and we were played off the field. We weren't, but we lost the game. So you have to give, to your point, we have to give Panama credit, while at the same time accepting that was a terrible performance by the U.S.
There's something that Panama has that they're able to translate into performances that the U.S. has lost. Cecilio Waterman, is he better than Christian Pulisic or Tim Weah? But he made the play that mattered.
I mean, I feel like I'm the old guy here. I feel like I have had these conversations before, and we've had this introspective type of moment, and why isn't the grit, and all the different words that we use there. And I'm not saying that it's not important. I will push back a little bit, and I know you did mention Pochettino, but ultimately, Pochettino was hired to draw out that of which we're talking right now. And he's being paid a hell of a lot of money. And by the way, he's an Argentine. Okay, and
He's the right guy to do it.
well, I'm saying
he has the right kind of
knows
background to do it,
From
yes.
being a player,
Yeah.
being a coach, and being from that culture, that nastiness.
Yeah.
That even the best teams in the world, including Argentina, with the wonderful soccer that they play, that's all fine and well. But they match it with a ruthlessness and a nastiness. And, in our effort to create better soccer players, and again, I'm just trying so hard to not call them coddled, spoiled, tattooed millionaires.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, you've done that before.
I'm trying so hard, and yet a part of me, the old guy in me, wants to line them up on the wall and scream at them and saying, what is your problem? You have been given absolutely everything. And at the very least, we should see some fight. At the very least, we should see your blood boil for the opportunity to represent the greatest country in the world. And we didn't see that tonight. You guys seem to think it's there.
Itself, though, for you in the game, if you were to see it, what does it look like for you?
In terms of how they actually play?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the Supreme Court obscenity definition, all right? I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it. And to your point, we saw it in, where was it, the final where they won?
Denver.
In Denver. There was a difference in that team, okay? In the
They
way
played
that
Mexico off the field a year ago. This month in that they scraped through against Jamaica on a fluky goal at the end. It was a weird game, and then they played phenomenally well.
Yeah.
And again, so we go and we do these things where I say, well, does it really matter to them? Do they even care? I think they care. I mean, I hope they care. By the way, if they don't care,
They
we might as well just
absolutely
pack it up,
care.
all right? Give our place to somebody else when it comes to 2026. And again, Gold Cup is coming right down the pike. It's another opportunity this summer. Obviously, the third place game against a very good Canadian team that don't think for a second Jesse Marsh isn't going to want.
Game. It's a huge game,
an opportunity.
for sure.
So
Yeah.
while it is a third place game, there is much more meaning than there would be in normal circumstances.
I'm excited to watch the third place game, honestly,
Yeah.
because I want to see how the U.S. This core group, I do think, deserves the benefit of the doubt. Like last year in the Nations League finals, as poor as they played in the semifinal, they played great in the final. In 2019, when they lost in Canada and they smashed them the next month in the following window in the Nations League. This is a group that's done a pretty good job historically at turning the page and bouncing back and improving. They didn't do that against Uruguay in the group stage finale, but I want to see that. I do think they have it in them. I'm excited to watch that game.
The other game tonight, Mexico-Canada, we talk about how not a lot of teams play with a strike pairing anymore. And we saw two tonight with Laren and David on one side and then Santi Jimenez and Raul Jimenez on the other. And Raul Jimenez, his return to form is just such a difference maker for Mexico. Played great in that friendly in Guadalajara against the U.S., scored both goals tonight. We know how good Jonathan David is. To go back to center forward in the U.S., I agree with you. Neither Sargent or Ajiman was the problem necessarily today. But lacking that killer number 9, how much of that is holding this team back right now?
Look, it's number 9, it's center back, and it's goalkeeper. And I have no answers after the game tonight, right? That's the truth.
Yeah.
And the stage was set with Balogun out and Pepe out and Haji Wright out for Josh Sargent to get out there. And I'm not blaming this on Sargent exclusively because, as you said it, and I think it's fair to say he didn't have a lot of opportunities and a lot of looks at goals because the U.S. just weren't creative enough. And that was one of the things I touched on right after the game was our chance creation. You knew what Panama was going to do tonight. You knew they were going to be in a deep block. So how did you not have solutions or ideas or patterns of play or things that ultimately, again, just that little smell of how to break down an opponent like that? And it felt like, I didn't think Mexico played great tonight, by the way. And even Raul Jimenez wasn't that involved other than a beautiful free kick and opportunistic in front of the goal, but that was the difference. They were just absolutely clinical.
Alexi,
By the way, the leaf blowers have started here, so if you can't hear Mosse,
They're going to start dimming the lights soon.
Hold on to
Yeah.
my hair.
Alexi made a great point after that Atletico Madrid-Real Madrid second leg. The fact that Atletico scored so early after 30 seconds, Conor Gallagher, it almost kind of threw them off for the rest of the game. And I felt like with Mexico tonight scoring so early, they then went into kind of a defensive
do much
shell,
else the rest of
played
the
in
half,
a counterattack where
Yeah.
I don't think that would have been the game plan if
Who
they
do
hadn't
you
scored
like in
that
the
early.
final?
I think Mexico finds a way.
Yeah.
Your boy Javier Aguirre finds a way.
Aguirre, man, he's a winner.
my fear is this, because yes, there's a Nations League, and yes, there's going to be a Gold Cup. My fear is this: the U.S. comes back a couple days from now and puts in a really good performance, beats Canada, and we're all sitting around going, "Hey, that was wonderful," and this guy scored, and this guy played really well, and all that kind of stuff. The problem was, why did you need tonight
loss.
against Panama in order to do that? All right, and can you manufacture that motivation for yourself without having to go through a failure of a performance the likes of which we saw, because you get into that tournament, you can't afford to just give away one of those games. And if you're not motivated when it comes to a World Cup or a Gold Cup, or here in this case an opportunity, then you have problems. And I think Mauricio Pochettino recognizes that he has problems. Listen, we have the leaf blowers that are going. The third place game and the final game will be on Paramount Plus this weekend, so you should all go and watch that with our friends. We saw them over there, Thierry Henry and company, and Kate Abdo and all that kind of
That's
stuff.
Of course, after our Liechtenstein, North Macedonia.
Of course.
Saturday morning.
I'm sure you're going to go home and study and make sure that that's all,
I'm gonna go home and
all ready
sleep,
to
but
go.
yes, yeah.
Listen, sometimes you go to sleep and you wake up and you see things in a different light. Maybe in the cold, harsh morning light.
It's not always the best.
This will look different, but, I don't know. Final thoughts before we head out into that night and then get to sleep and hopefully wake up in a better position.
I'm going to end this the way I started it. The honeymoon is over for Pochettino. He's not above criticism. This is his first real setback as U.S. coach, and let's see how he responds.
I think sometimes as a coach, you look for ways without competitive games and qualifiers beyond the Gold Cup for the U.S. and for Pochettino to find ways to almost manufacture adversity and to create pressure. And when I think about him coming into the situation to try to keep guys on an edge, you almost, in retrospect, you wouldn't have wanted to lose tonight, but you use this as an opportunity as a coaching staff, as captains, as players, to now say, look, guys, this is the bottom, okay? We're up from here. We put pressure. It's how we respond. And you look for that response. And who are the leaders? And to your point, okay, if they go out and they roll Canada, we'll be like, well, why didn't you do that before? I'd rather that than them come up against Canada and get absolutely smashed. So I want to see a response, and I expect to see a response. And I'm as excited as I've been for a third-place game as I have been for a while, because I want to see this team respond, because I wasn't happy with that tonight. And I'm so far down right now from where I want to be that I hope these guys prove me wrong and we get the response we want.
Mauricio Pochettino inherited the same challenge as Greg Berhalter had. And Mauricio Pochettino has to find solutions for them, but he's in the same boat Greg Berhalter was, which is that there's only so much of it that's within his control. It's challenges and opportunities. That's the challenge they face. The opportunity is for these players to bounce back in the third place game and to use this as something that when we're in this building 15 months from now, we go, hey, remember that really awful night against Panama, and look at what's happened since. That is what my hope is for this group.
Is that your expectation? You think that'll happen?
Yes, I'm going to say that.
Okay.
Because I'm going to die on the hill of positivity.
Love it.
I love that. And I don't think that you're sticking your head in the sand by doing that. Yes, there are problems. I think everybody can see that there are problems. I don't think that they are unfixable to all your points, but there are some, there is some realistic things that we have to think about when it comes to this team. And maybe we have had shaded glasses when we are talking about this team. But I do think that things could happen. So the sky is not falling, but it certainly rained like hell tonight, and that was not good. The sky will clear, all right? The sun will come out, but there is a lot of work to do for this team on the field, obviously before Sunday, to get some of that spirit, to get some of that ruthlessness that we are talking about back into their game, because they are going to need it against Canada, because Jesse Marsch is going to be licking his chops for an opportunity not just to beat the opponent, but to beat the United States. And you're welcome, Canada, that we gave you Jesse Marsch, but we may be the architects of our own demise when it comes to like that. It's up to Pochettino and this group to make sure that that doesn't happen. And then you parlay that, to your point, into the next appearance. Obviously, this summer with Gold Cup, you do as well as you can. And for us, it's about winning the Gold Cup. And then you're on your way. There are things that can be fixed. There are other things that can't be fixed. That's okay. It doesn't mean that this team can't put in good performances and can't win games against the likes of Panama. That's for sure. But we are aiming much higher when it comes to beating the elite. So I want to thank everybody for coming and joining us here on the State of the Union, this live State of the Union here at SoFi Stadium. I want to thank SoFi for being accommodating, CONCACAF for being accommodating, the folks over there at Paramount Plus for letting us crash the site here and everything else. We will be back again on Sunday to hopefully talk about some really, really good positive things and give you some perspective when it comes to the State of the Union. Until then, keep reviewing and downloading and subscribing and doing all the different things you're doing. Both hands, all right? Both fists. Pound it out over there on the old YouTube subscribe thing. We will talk to you again later on this weekend. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay, America. Until then, and as always, size the day.